Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jun Feng, and together with me today is Tim Ong. We have scheduled a webinar series for all the listeners and participants today. I'm sure you guys have received our invite. If not, you will be in. Now, the sharing today that we have is called the Singapore Skills Talk. Right now, I see that the timing is 2. Let me just do a quick introduction of ourselves, the presenters or the one hosting the webinar session today. As mentioned again, my name is Jun Feng, and this is Tim to my left. We are from the Skills Development Group, SDG for short, and we are in the data team. This webinar series, right, is actually our number 5 series. Just to give a quick background, we are at SDG piloting a series of webinar, and the purpose of this pilot, right, is actually for us to literally explore the different type of outreach methods that we can do to disseminate information regarding jobs and skills to our various stakeholders out there. Specifically, we are looking at employers, individuals, training providers, as well as policymakers per se. In our first 4 series, right, we have actually targeted through our pilot the Institute for Higher Learning stakeholders. Now, for this series 5, right, it is something more of a special series because it's December, it's a holiday season. We thought that as part of our pilot, right, why not we invite beyond participants from IHR? Why not we invite people who might be interested in the Singapore Skills Talk to listen in and perhaps even give us your comments on how we can improve this pilot. So subsequently, come 2021, we can work on the better content to share with you guys. This is just a quick background on the webinar series. I believe that we do have a Q&A session later on, so you guys can just type in your question and we'll try our best to answer all of the questions. Just a little side note as well, the session for today will be recorded live. We have the recording, yes, Tim have confirmed, we have the recording, and we will be uploading the recording on YouTube channel, if I remember correctly, and we will share with you guys the link so that in the event that your colleagues is not able to join us today, or if your colleagues have not received the link from us, you can just go to the web YouTube link, view the session today, as well as the content that we are sharing with you today. Okay, now without further ado, right, let us start proper getting to the Singapore Skills Talk. Let me see, are we able to do this now? Okay, we're trying to shift to the next slide here. It's always the issue of technical issues when we're broadcasting live. Okay, just give us a minute here. Okay, now, as I highlighted earlier on, this is because it's a year end and we want to make it as an effort to showcase the collective effort that we have done throughout the year. And in fact, it's not throughout the year per se. This effort, right, actually started way back in 2016. And what effort am I talking about is actually the development of the Singapore Skills Framework. As you can see here, the Skills Framework actually is a national effort for us with the intent to create a common skills language for all the stakeholders as mentioned on this specific slide. And by a nation effort, right, it is actually a collaboration with the businesses out there, with the IHLs, Institute for Higher Learning, and even with enterprises, as well as individuals who give us their inputs pertaining on the construct of skills framework and the type of jobs and skills within the skills framework. So in fact, right, we see a lot of efforts being generated in producing the 33 skills framework, and we actually do have our upcoming 34th skills framework for some of you that might not know. So you can see that to date, we have developed 33, covering 2/3 of the labor force size. And this involvement, right, as mentioned earlier on, involves a lot of people, a lot of resources that is being put into it. And with such, right, let me see, I can't really see. Oh, okay, sorry, I received a feedback that the voice is too muffled. I will speak slower. Hope that helps. If not, right, you guys might want to go to a place with better Wi-Fi connection to see whether or not it works for you. Okay, having said that, we have developed a skills framework covering 2/3 of the workforce, and within that, right, of the 33 skills framework, 12 belongs to the manufacturing sector, such as precision engineering, sea transport, biopharmaceutical, as well as 21 skills framework in the services sector. And this covers sectors such as hotel accommodation services, retail services, and as such. So with the 33 framework being developed, right, we ask ourselves this question: we have this comprehensive data as you can see here. We have a total of 1,400 plus job roles and skills of, if you see item number 6, TSCs actually stands for technical skills and competencies. GSCs actually stands for generic skills and competencies. So just based on these numbers, right, you can see that we have actually a vast number of skills, a vast number of job roles being recorded across this 33 skills framework. Now, the question we ask ourselves is, how then can we make use of this information to improve CET in Singapore? So the basic fundamental is always, what are the use cases out there? Because data is just data. We need use cases to allow us to generate this information and make it meaningful for our stakeholders out there. So with that being said, right, these are the two questions that we ask ourselves. With all this information, how can we better evaluate the growth areas, i.e., is there certain business trends that are growing? Are there certain emerging skills? And the kind of job roles demanded out there? Because towards the end of the day, whether you are an educator from the IHLs or whether you are enterprises, you will want to know what sort of skills are currently in demand by your competitors. Or will my student get a good job when they graduate? And is there a demand for such a job? So with all this information, we thought we could perhaps generate some useful information or some useful insights to share with all our stakeholders. And this is our first attempt to literally understand how can we better dissect or unpack the information within the skills framework. As being said, right, to do so, we then need to establish what we have currently in terms of jobs and the skills to the jobs, which is why we established what we call the Singapore Skills Stock. So ultimately, as highlighted in blue, information from the Singapore Skills Stock, right, will allow us to better facilitate planning for both training supply in terms to meet the training demands. Now, there are two questions that we ask ourselves pertaining to all these things. The first is, what are the current skill stocks and the corresponding size related to these skill stocks? By corresponding size, right, we are talking about labor size, labor force size. The second question we ask ourselves is, what are the emerging skills demand and, again, the corresponding labor size? I believe these are very important questions that would generally generate useful cases for people out there to use. So to understand that, right, we have actually come up with a methodology to establish what we have, what we currently existingly have in terms of our skill stock. Let me see. Yeah. So pertaining to this methodology, right, I'll get Tim to talk more about this because he's the data science person to actually evaluate the entire skills framework with this methodology.
Thank you. So our methodology, as you can see from this diagram here, we start from left to right. So we started off the process by mapping the job roles in our skills framework to the Singapore Standard Occupational Classification, or SSOC for short. Then following that, we tried to estimate the number of workers for each skills framework job role. And we did the estimation by using the weighted mean. So under this approach, we basically place weightage to account for the size of the sector. So a larger sector would have a larger weightage compared to a smaller one. In addition, we also place another weightage to take into account that the seniority of job roles, and so that more junior job roles would have a higher weightage compared to more senior ones. Then following that, we also tried to use cluster analysis to group the TSCs into categories whereby the similar ones are being analyzed as a group. So the intention of this analysis is to allow us to group our TSCs not into like broader categories such as like business management, IT, engineering, and things like that, but instead to find small groups of TSCs whereby we can analyze them together. So at the end, the product we have at the end of this process, that we have a group of skills and we know. This is the question that we attempt to answer. What is the current skill stock of the Singapore economy?
Sorry, Tim, before we go on, right, I just want to do a quick check with our audience out there. We just added in an additional device so that our voice will be clearer. So one of my colleagues is doing a check right now to see if the voice is clear. I think it should be okay. I hope that our voice is not as muffled as compared to earlier. Now, let me just go back to the earlier slides that Tim had shared. I think this is a very important thing because Tim earlier mentioned specifically on the labor force, the weighted average. I just like you guys to imagine this. When we are using the weighted average, right, what we assume is that each sector actually function within something like a pyramid shape, i.e. to say, or triangle shape, i.e. to say the bottom will always be larger than the top. So we envisage, one of the assumptions is the operational people will be, in terms of labor force size, will be larger compared to people who are at the CEO level, the C-suite level. So with that, right, thus when it comes to the labor force estimation, right, we are not averaging out the entire labor force equally. We are averaging out based on this pyramid shape that I just talked about. So this is just for info, and this is important to know as part of our methodology. So as continue, right, this is the thing that we're asking ourselves: what do we have currently? What is the current skill stock of our economy based on the Singapore Skills Framework, overlaying with labor force survey numbers? Now, Tim.
Okay, based on what we had described to you earlier, whereby we try to find groups of TSCs, and we also try to determine like what's the number of workers that have this particular skill. So we managed to find out that across 30 skills framework, stakeholder management is like the most common skill across 30 of our skills framework. Then this is followed by risk management, which account for like 630,000 workers. And lastly, then followed by workplace safety and health, which has about 610 workers who have this particular skill. Then also like what we mentioned to you earlier, examples of the TSCs that are being contained in the stakeholder management group can include like things like business stakeholder management and also stakeholder engagement and things like that.
I think just to highlight on what Tim had also mentioned pertaining to this specific slide, some of the things to highlight is, as what you guys have noticed earlier, we do have 1,600 plus technical skills and competencies. So one question that you guys might have, or even some people ask me, is why do we want to cluster these 1,600 plus skills into, then mentioned in this slide, 140 skills categories? One of the things that we found is that for a job, right, it is commonly known that we don't perform one skill in a job. We actually perform a basket of skills depending on the functions that we are asked to do. Let's say, for example, some of you guys maybe lecturers. I don't think that you guys just have skills such as designing curriculum. That's not just the only skill that you have. Even talking about designing of curriculum, there will be a series or basket of skills accompanying with this. So to allow us to literally understand the job better, the actual skill stock, right? That is the reason why we start clustering skills that we think are of similar into the same basket. So therefore, we have 160 plus skills being categorized into 140 skills categories. This will allow us to paint a better picture of the skill stock of what currently the occupation have in terms of skills out there. So that's the reason of why from 1,600 plus skills into 140 skills categories. And this slide, right, we're just showing the top 10 skills categories by the total of estimated labor force to the corresponding skills categories. Am I right, Tim? Yeah, okay, good. Let us just go on to the next slide now.
Some of you may also be wondering if there are like any similarities or differences between PMETs and non-PMETs workers in Singapore. So what we have noticed is that, as you can see from the bar chart on the left, the common skills for non-PMETs typically are more like operational related, which include workplace safety and health, emergency response management, and supply chain management. On the other hand, we also notice that the common skills among PMETs are more business development related and also strategic planning related, such as stakeholder management, risk management, and change management.
Yeah. I think what some of the potential use case that we can think of, right? At least right now, when I'm looking at this, right, we know that we always try to uplift the skills quality of our workforce. And if you refer to the graph on the left, the non-PMETs, we know that WSH is very important because we do not want anybody risking their legs and limbs during work. But if we are talking about uplifting the skills of non-PMET, we want them to become better skills to have better profile so that they can be competitive, not just locally, but globally. Looking at these top 10 skills, right, are there any specific things that we want to do more, we would like to invest more, or businesses would like to drive their functions more so that the non-PMPs, right, could grow their skills set accordingly. For example, if we think that moving forward, we are going to do more of IP, we are going to do more of things such as service excellence, are these areas of skills where we want to shift people into, so that things like emergency response management, given that it's a must-have, we see that these numbers perhaps will stay stagnant, and other areas of skills, right, potentially from the PMAT side will flow into the non-PMAT side. That's something that we might want to explore even further when we talk about upskilling of the workforce in totality, and specifically for non-PMET to raise the standard of the skills. So this is one of the potential use cases that we can consider, which is something that we can talk about it later on, and we would like to keep this idea part just for later discussion. Now, for this thing, right, because we have already established what skills do our workforce have in terms of stakeholder management, things like that, and of course with the corresponding numbers. The earlier few slides, right, what we have shared is literally what we have. So what we are going to share next, right, is based on the SkillsFuture series, we are going to answer the potential question of what emerging skills do people need and what are the numbers that we are looking at. So why use SkillsFuture series? Some of you might ask, because within our skills framework, when we are developing it, right, as Tim might later on can share with you guys the development of the skills framework, we do identify a list of emerging skills within the skills framework. But the reason why we tag it to SkillsFuture series, right, because SkillsFuture series currently is a curated list of programs that focuses on emerging skills. And there are, as you see here, 8 domains. So Tim, you want to share with us how the emerging skills is identified in the skills framework, and how do we sort of tag these skills to our SFS domains?
Okay, on this particular slide, as you can see the table here, so the first column basically contains the 8 different domains, such as advanced manufacturing and so on. And the column on the right refers to the skills categories which we have identified through our cluster analysis. So basically, we try to map some of our skill categories to the corresponding SkillsFuture series domains, so that we can identify the number of workers that require skill in these particular areas.
So you can see here that the example of the skills categories, in which in fact we have earlier cluster, right? We try to map it to the, or we have mapped it to the SFS domain. And what we have shown here, right, are just some examples of the skills categories mapped to the domains. In fact, there are more, right? Am I right to say that? Yep. So Tim, walk us through this slide. This is a very important slide, actually.
So the heat map here shows the 8 different SkillsFuture series domains, as you can see at the top, and the corresponding number of workers across the different sectors are being represented by the color. So a darker color basically means more workers compared to a lighter shade. And among these 8 different domains, we can notice that data analytics is actually the one with the highest demand, as the number of estimated workers that require skill in this area is the largest when we compare to all the 8 different domains. And also the sectors with the highest demand, they come from logistics, retail, and also wholesale trade sectors. And other than data analytics, the second domain with the highest demand is advanced manufacturing, as you can see from the bar chart at the bottom left-hand corner.
So this is really something that is, I would say, perhaps not surprising to many of the people out there, especially since we see day in, day out in the news, right? There's always talk on the need of data scientists, data engineer. Therefore, for data analytics, right, to appear as the top in terms of demand by top skills categories demanded by employers, right? This is something as expected. So we look at things like the second category, advanced manufacturing. What exactly are they looking at? So from there on, right, we actually goes into the next slide to see in terms of emerging and this group of emerging skills. Some sectors may find that these skills are emerging, whereas other sectors may find that these skills actually is needed, but they are not emerging. Perhaps, Tim, you are able to explain that concept better to our viewers here.
Okay, before we talk more about this slide, let us just explain to you something about the TSCs that are being contained in our skills framework. During the course of the development of our skills framework, the industry helped us to identify which are the skills that they consider to be emerging. So emerging skills typically refer to skills that are relatively new and the penetration rate may be low for the workers in those sectors. So in some sense, we can actually like classify the TSC in our skills framework as whether it is an emerging skill or non-emerging skill, as represented by the colors in this particular chart. So if we assume that non-emerging skills, which is the blue bar, are the workers which already have skills in that particular domain, and for emerging skills, which is represented by the orange bar, we assume that the workers currently may not have those skills. So going by that assumption, then we can see that among these 8 different domains, for 2 of the domains which are being highlighted with the dotted lines, the proportion of workers that may not have skill in those domains is like significantly larger than those workers which may already have the skills.
Tim, I have just a question here because looking at this type of this specific slide, right? Can I assume on behalf of our viewers is that let's say we use data analytics as an example, regardless whether it's blue or orange bar, can I say that these are skills demanded by the employers?
It's correct, because these are all based on the TSCs found in the job roles. So these are all skills being demanded by the employers. Just that during the course of the skills framework development, some of the skills are being demanded by the employers as an emerging skill, whereas some are not demanded as an emerging skill.
So you guys hear it right? From this chart, right, we are saying that all these skills within the SF as the SkillsFuture series, right, are actually demanded by the employers. It's just that let's say, for example, let me give you an example here. Is that in data analytics, perhaps for the ICT sector, assuming they may not find this as emerging skills because they have all along been using it, but it is still demanded by their employers per se. Vis-a-vis perhaps like retail sector who are very much moving into like online ordering, things like that, which they requires a lot of data analytics. So for that, right, the retail sector may view that this is this is emerging as well as they demand it. So in short, all these bars here are telling us that all these are the demand, whether or not they are just emerging versus not emerging. I hope that clarifies. Correct? Okay. Now that gives us a flavor of the current skill stock that we have and the demand of the emerging skills numbers. Now, we cannot just rely everything on skills framework because, yes, we have developed it comprehensively, but it is always good practice for us to sort of compare our data with what other data are saying. So we have actually extracted some portion of the data from LinkedIn Talent Insight as well as Burning Glass, specific to the 2 highest areas that we have highlighted previously. One is the data analytics, another one would be advanced manufacturing. On this note, right, comparing LinkedIn Talent Insight on data analytics, you can see that the growth rate, right, based on one last year or the last 1 year is 84%. This is in fact quite huge. And the hiring demand, according to LinkedIn Talent Insight, is that it is very high. Talent that requires data analytics, right, is actually very, very difficult to find. And I quote them, very hard to find. And the average job post in the past 30 days, right? Okay, of course, there's some plus minus days because the day when we produced this slide was like a week back. So it's like, I think plus minus 29 days or so, or 31 days or so. There are like 3,000 plus job roles that is posted based on LinkedIn data. Now for Burning Glass, right, the numbers are quite similar in terms of job posting, 2,000 plus, and occupation that indicated the need for data analytics as a skill, right, are as follows as you guys could see here. Okay, from database, network professionals, all the way to financial analysis, which in fact are quite typical and what we would expect. But one thing that we were discussing among ourselves is, if you guys notice, right, the second last row, you see the job called pharmacologist, yes, and related professionals. This is in fact quite standing out. First of all, due to the difficulty in terms of pronouncing this job title, as well as we don't typically associate data analysis with perhaps this job occupation. Now, Tim, can I know what you think about this?
I think the list of occupations here, some of them maybe we can consider them to be like quite traditional, whereby the job actually requires skills in like doing data analysis and things like that, including like system analysts performing in the IT job function. But we can also see like some maybe perhaps not so traditional, like perhaps maybe salesperson and also office general clerks, and also professionals working in the pharmaceutical sector. Actually, this is actually like aligned to what we have already found in our skills framework, because during the course of our development, many of the employees in this sector, they actually requested for data and analytics to be a skill for job roles in this sector, and they also identified that as an emerging skill, yeah, for their sector.
I think it is very clear to us what we traditionally thought as roles that may not require data, right? Is now changing or has actually changed. We see that more and more job roles are actually asking for skills in data and analytics. Of course, in terms of proficiency level, in terms of the data analytics, that will differ depending on the job roles and the function they are asked to play. For example, if we see a general office clerk requesting for data analytics, right, perhaps this is literally just to create something of an Excel sheet, analyze descriptive data per se, vis-a-vis or even vis-a-vis a financial analysis. Analyst could be doing a form of predictive or forecasting or even fraud analytics. So this is the type of differences that we are observing, which in fact tell us quite starkly is that almost many jobs right now require a form of data analytics. It's just what form are employers asking for. All this boils down to the business function that employers are looking at when they sort of set out their business roadmap and as such. Now that's for data analytics. The next thing we are looking at is advanced manufacturing. Now this is equally exciting, but Tim, do you like to take us through this?
Based on the numbers that we have obtained from LinkedIn, the growth rate is like 25% compared to the previous year, and the hiring demand was also very high. And the average number of job posting requiring skills in advanced manufacturing was like over 1,000. And this number is consistent with the job posting number that we obtained from Burning Glass. Although the numbers here may be smaller than those numbers for data analytics, we also see that many companies are actually hiring a lot of people with skills in this area. As you can see in the table below, these are some of the common job roles that require skills in advanced manufacturing. But although we also like to highlight that there may be some that are like not very traditional, maybe like not from the manufacturing sector. Yeah.
Just to build on what Tim has said, I did receive feedback that why is a computer technician requiring advanced manufacturing? Wouldn't the computer technician be more related to things like computer engineering and such? I think one of the, because we mentioned earlier on, we are actually looking at a basket of skills, looking at cluster within our skills categories. So skills like Internet of Things, skills like robotics, skills like automation are actually being highlighted by this occupation or from this job posting, that employers say that they think that these are skills which are related to advanced manufacturing required by these job roles. Again, it could be a very basic fundamental, or it could be very high level of provision that the employers are looking for. For this, right, I think it warrants further investigation, because towards the end of the day, right, when we are talking about training supply, we also want to make sure that the skills that the training providers are training for actually meets the demand of the employers out there. So if, let's say, for example, the employers is asking for industrial IoT and is looking at a very high proficiency level or a very deep skill in that. So perhaps, right, with this information, we can share with training providers, or we can even share with the employers to say that what you require, right, is actually provided by certain or some of the IHLs. So we can link them up to make sure that there is sufficient or there is relevant training supply to meet their demands. So these are potentially, again, what I mentioned, the use cases that we are working towards. And in fact, right, data is nothing without looking at the use case. So to us, right, it is important to emphasize on what sort of use case can we work on relating to all this data. So with that being said, right, when we look at the important things to note here is that the skills stock was created to understand what is our workforce strength and the potential which our workforce can look into. So we want to assess the economic activities, the industry and growth area that will best fit the strength of our workforce and determine the skills demand versus the skills supply. I think we have used, in this case, the skills framework as well as the labor force survey as a proxy to establish what we have, i.e. the Singapore skills stocks but we acknowledge that there are certain limitations. Tim, you want to highlight maybe one or two of these limitations that the audience might have missed earlier?
What the limitations could possibly be, like how we estimate the number of workers for all the different skills and job roles, because I mean, we are just using a weighted mean approach, so there could possibly be like a better approach whereby we could find out a better estimation for the different job roles. And also the analysis that we carry out here also is like very dependent on how we group and cluster the skills. So if you like cluster the TSCs into like very broad categories, like maybe business management, IT, engineering, then whatever analysis that you want to and insights that you can draw from is like quite different from what we are trying to show here.
I think towards nowadays, right, what we acknowledge is the information that we have based on our skills framework as well as our skills from the labor force deriving from the labor force survey is there are certain assumptions that we have made. And of course, the skill stock itself, right, even the methodology, we are undergoing refinement to see, or enhancement, if you might want to call it, to perhaps include data from literally job posting data out there, from the likes of Indeed.com, Burning Glass, or even from our sister's company, Workforce Singapore, for My Careers portal, My Careers Future portal. Because we find that with job posting data, right, we will actually be able better to understand what exactly are the demands out there. And of course, we couple this with information such as wage, training supply. This will give us literally a very comprehensive picture of the skills required for our workforce. Now, having said that, right, I think towards nowadays, what we really intend to do is, with all this information, right, can we create, again, I want to emphasize, use cases through such things such as tools and dashboard related to the jobs and skills. And we want to take this opportunity to perhaps call for POCs to work together with us, to collaborate with us, to use the data that we have, because our data is no secret. We want to build the capability of the entire Singapore in terms of analyzing the data, and ultimately it's for the benefit of our workforce and the employers. So we want to collaborate to build POCs, to create use cases, to support the CET. So if any of you out there, right, have interest to work with us on this, do write to us. Our email is actually there. You can take a screenshot, or you can just use your handphone to like, click on the screen. You can get in contact with us. In fact, you can Google our name. You can actually find our address there as well. And we want to have this collaboration ongoing, and we want to have this discussion ongoing as well. Because towards the end of the day, we acknowledge that there are a lot of improvement that needs to be done. We do not know everything in terms of jobs and skills. Therefore, we call all the people out there who might give us, who have the ideas and want to share with us on how to improve our things. We welcome the writing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So on this note, right, I gather that there are some Q&A on the board right now. We are looking at the big screen. There's another bigger screen in our room right now. We have this question from, let me see, Duan Ling. Sorry, I got to change my spec because this is my reading glass. Let me see. We have this question from Duan Ling. Yeah. The question is this interesting as to how advanced manufacturing are required from software developers as well as sales business development manager by LinkedIn and Burning Glass? If data analytics is part of advanced manufacturing, then it needs to be delineated. Otherwise, okay. To answer this specific question, right, what we see here is we are actually just trying to get a sense of what some of the job roles might require these skills, whether it's advanced manufacturing or data analytics. But one thing to note, both LinkedIn and Burning Glass, right, they have their own way of classifying skills. So in order for us, right, like what I mentioned earlier on, in order for us to triangulate our data accurately, to make things more relevant, we got to take all this data and start normalizing the data with reference to, of course, to skills framework. So at this stage, right, we have not yet normalized all this information or all this data. Moving forward next year, perhaps through the POC, right, we can start looking at all these different sources of data, start normalizing them and using a single source of reference rather than there's multiple taxonomy going out there. So we'll normalize the data to reference it to one single source of taxonomy per se. And as such, right, then we will truly be able to say with confidence, right, that this job requires this data analysis as a skill and is without a doubt that it's reference to skills framework or the job skills repository, and it's a common set of taxonomy that we have developed. I hope that clarifies. So as mentioned again, we are at this moment of time using burning glass data as well as linking data, right, just for comparison purpose. It is just for us to make a sensing to see what's the demand like. So it is literally a proxy, if I may put it in that manner. Yeah. Tim, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, fully agree with what Jun Feng has said, because if some of you who are familiar with the skills framework, you could see that in our skills framework, the TSCs, they are being described as skills, whereas typically in the job posting, the skills is could be in the form of like software or tools like SPSS, SAS, and Python and things like that. So that like in the current stage, there's like there isn't like a complete linkage between the job posting and our skills framework. So that is something which we'll be working towards in the next year, come to 2020.
Okay, let me see what is some of the other questions that we have. How do you account for the differences? Okay, again from Tuan Ling, how do we account for the differences in SFW development? They are developed by different consultants during our analysis. Yes, I would imagine Tuan Ling is very familiar with our skills development process. Yes, Tuan Ling is right. We do develop the skills framework through partnership. Sometimes internally, we develop it internally, and sometimes through appointment of different consultants. But one thing to note is we have a specific design construct when we are developing the skills framework. So it's not to say that all skills framework development are based on different design construct. So we do have a certain guide a guidance and a design construct to guide our consultant or even to guide our internal officer when developing the skills framework. And with that being said, right, coupled with this design construct, we do have a internal committee to review all developed skills framework before saying that yes, it is in fact meeting our construct. So that is one thing that we have set in place to ensure that when these differences, right, are literally just the content differences, but not the design construct differences. So again, I hope this clarifies into how we let me see, how do we then address all these differences during our skills framework development. Okay. Going on to the next question, would Singapore Skills Stock also include GSCs or focus only on TSCs? Tim, you want to answer this?
Okay, right now this particular piece that we are doing only focuses on TSCs, but of course we can extend that to include GSCs also. Perhaps maybe in our future webinars is something that we can work on if the audience is interested to know the skill stock for GSCs.
That's right. So at this moment of time, right, because our TSCs, as you guys have seen, right, we have 1,000 plus TSCs, whereas our GSCs is something we only have 18 across 3 different levels, so it's 18 multiplied by 3. So at this moment of time, we are actually looking at the TSCs only, but we will be looking and focusing on the also looking at the GSCs moving forward, because we think that both GSCs and TSCs are equally important in terms of understanding what workers need in terms of the skills that require them to function in their jobs. Going into the next question, would we be able to have a copy of the slides as they give a good summary of the TSC and skills framework? I don't think it's a major issue, because ultimately, as mentioned earlier at the start of the sharing, right, we will make available the link, so you guys can actually refer to the link of this video recording of this webinar today, and for you guys to refer to what we have shared, as well as I think we will also be sharing the FAQ that are being asked to facilitate the better or deeper understanding of the Singapore skills stock based on the skills framework. Okay, this is almost the last question. In fact, okay. The questions that we have here is, what do we mean by advanced manufacturing? Okay, and this question is from Joyce Tan. Joyce, in terms of advanced manufacturing, right, I'm quoting directly from the SkillsFuture series. But instead of going directly into all the description, right, some of the domain areas that advanced manufacturing are looking at are in fact industrial Internet of Things, additive manufacturing, robotics, and automation. So these are the domains that define advanced manufacturing per se. Okay, I hope that clarifies. But if you are interested to know more, right, I would encourage you to visit the SkillsFuture webpage. And under the SkillsFuture series, right, there is a very complete description of what advanced manufacturing is, together with the accompanying courses pertaining to advanced manufacturing. So that will give you a better clarity beyond the domain areas which I mentioned earlier, the industrial IoT, robotics, and automation. So that description, right, will sort of serve as a understanding of what advanced manufacturing actually means. Okay, now the next question is, what is the estimated time frame the skills will be ready and available for IHL to access? Okay, this is a very good question, Tim. Okay, I'm just pulling Tim's leg here. I think we are back and working very hard to try to make sure that the data that we have, including all the analysis, are robust enough. We are trying to work towards what we call a minimum viable product, so that the IHL, perhaps even beyond the IHL, they can have access and start creating the dashboard. So the timeline that we are looking at is possibly sometime next year. So sometime next year is very broad, right? So Tim, what sort of timeline do you have in mind?
Sometime before December next year.
Okay, sometime before December next year in our don't know X number of webinar, we will share the full list. Now, just joke aside. I think we will try to work out this dashboard and tools, but allow us some time, because internally, right, we only do have that many of resources, even though that's not an excuse. We will work to enhance the data, to make sure that the data is enhanced enough. But for the MVP, right, I think it will be sometime mid next year, which we can launch something for that to share with the IHL, and this will definitely, I guess, be useful. But having said that, right, Sharon, if you would like to collaborate with us to create these tools based on our data, you need not wait until the final product that we have, because if you have something in mind that you think the Singapore Skills Stock would be useful to you, to let us know, write to us, and we can immediately have some collaboration. And this can be something quick that we are looking at, so that we can roll out tools to meet your needs as well. So I hope that clarifies and answers your questions. Okay, now we have almost done with all the questions. There are in fact 7 questions in total. If there are no more questions, Tim, do you have any last words for our viewers today?
No, I don't have any.
No, you don't. Seriously, you don't? Okay, now I do have something for you guys. I'd like to emphasize again, for our viewers today, this is actually a pilot sessions, pilot webinar that we hope to send relevant content to you guys, and that content that you guys find meaningful. So if you have any comments, right, seriously, any comments that help to make our session more meaningful, that will help to refine our content, do leave us a message, do give us some comments. I can't say give us a thumbs up, because this is not a YouTube video. I cannot say click here for thumbs up. All I can say is give us your comments. We appreciate every comment, whether it's constructive or not. Do provide us with your comments. I think we do appreciate that. And since it's a pilot session, we do intend to hold such session, depending on your feedback, more regularly and periodically come next year, 2020. So we look forward for your support in terms of such webinar session. And with that being said and done, right, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hopefully you guys have a wonderful 2020 ahead. Okay, one last chance.
Thank you for joining the webinar, and I wish everyone a happy holidays.
All right, thank you everyone. Have a nice day.